It has been widely reported that President Muhammadu Buhari will be the petroleum minister. Now, we partly discussed this issue Monday on Kakaaki, the African Voice, and we will continue the debate whether the president can hold another executive position apart from being the president.
Section 5, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution provides the executive powers of the Federation shall be vested in the president and may subject as aforesaid and to the provisions of any law made by the National Assembly. Now, it could be exercised by him either directly or through the vice president and ministers of the government of the Federation or officers of the public service of the Federation.
Well, Section 138 states that the president shall not, during his tenure of office, hold any executive office or paid employment whatsoever. Now, these are talking points this Tuesday on Kakaaki, the African Voice.
And yes, we're joined by, from our Abuja studio here by Chief Barrister Nwanyanwu, MNI, OFR, lawyer, former national chairman and former chairman board of trustees for the Labour Party. And from our Bauchi Center, we'll also have Victor Badal joining us, also a legal practitioner in Bauchi. You're welcome.
All right, you're welcome, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Now, let's gauge your eagerness. I mean, everybody's waiting for the very famous ministerial list, if I must say. How eager are you, and what do you expect to see on that list?
I'm eager like most Nigerians, but I will not be so comfortable. Not comfortable. I will be disappointed if the names that have been all over the place happens to be the name this morning, as will be unveiled by the Senate President. Not disappointed because of the persons, but because these are people we have known. One will now ask, why the delay? So it's not because they are not credible. It's not because they cannot be ministers.
When you say people that we have known, it does appear that you do have an idea what the names are. We know that the media is awash with names of certain people.
That's what I'm saying. I'm referring to the names we have seen in the media. But something tells me that it may not be true. Because President Muhammadu Buhari all along have kept this thing to himself. And I think the Senate President was also smart not to break the seal of the envelope, so that nobody will accuse him of leaking the list. I expect this morning he will show the envelope to the Senate and open it before them. Okay. So if those names that have been in public domain happens to be the names there, then it must have leaked from the office of the president. So Saraki would have been exonerated. Okay. So, but if it's not the same name, then Nigerians should be careful with what they read in the papers.
But then still talking about your expectations and perhaps your disappointment, I mean, do you think this was enough for the president to keep the whole Nigeria waiting with the kind of speculations that we have seen?
That's what I'm saying. If the list in the media happens to be the names of those that will be ministers, then there was no reason for Mr. President to have waited so long, because he's been working with these people. We know them, and without prejudice, they are all qualified to be ministers. So we are expecting certain category of people based on the expectations of Mr. President. People that will be just like the way Ibe Kachuku emerged. Most Nigerians didn't know him. But by the time you Google him, you see his solid credentials. Credentials you cannot query. So we expected things like that. Or people that nobody expected to be a minister, but because of their own credentials, their names will go in. So that's the only surprise that most Nigerians will have.
But the unprecedented wait, a lot of people said, has cost the economy a lot of backdrop. And when you look at the general well-being of Nigerians and how they perceive the wait for the ministers to occupy the ministries, dependent on how forward the economy, must move, do you think that is justifiable for the president to have done this, especially as we see the economy dwindling at the backdrop of the Nigerian?
For the president to do what? To
keep the cabinet, withheld from the Nigerian public as against the drop in the economy as well.
You see, I have this attitude. This is President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Everybody has his style, and we should not stampede him. He started by taking briefs from ministries, parastatals, to have a first-hand information, details of what had transpired in those ministries. That is his own style. If something happens after 4 years, they say President Muhammadu Buhari's government, not anybody's government. And this pressure has always been from those who submitted their CVs that are in a hurry to be ministers. They are the ones putting all this pressure. I don't think we have lost much. Let him do it and do it well. I don't have problem with that. Let the president take his time. You know, as we are now arriving at the point of having the ministers. And I think he even succumbed to pressure. Left for him. I don't think he would have brought it by this
We might not have seen it this year.
Of course, because at the time they complained about end of September that it was moving fast. I said, why are you looking at this? Why are you listening to this? Take your time. This is your government. Okay. You know what you want. You know where you want to go to. We are eager to see economic blueprint. We're eager to see policies. We're eager to see how unemployment will be brought down.
And of course, you would agree that that is understandable.
Yeah.
Why Nigerians are eager to see all of this policy change and of course implementation. But then let's move to Victor in our Bauchi studios. Quickly tell us what you expect to see today when the list, the ministerial list is finally unveiled by the Senate President.
My expectation is such that Nigerians will finally have a sigh of relief because we've been waiting. There has been high expectation and tensions from all over the country. You find out that the usual expectation of Nigerians is that ministers who are appointed are, you know, basically appointed on the basis of where they come from or where they represent. So the tension now is which state is represented on the ministerial list, and what is it that they would have to say as regards to the person that is finally nominated or appointed from their own region. This is the character of our political system, and that has been the reason basically for the tension. And that
the pressure on the president to make sure that every state is represented on that list may have delayed the release of this list to the Senate. But a lot of people, Nigerians, would beg to disagree that perhaps there was some political interference. Do you also think that perhaps the political party, which of course saw him become the president of which he's president, probably had some level of interference in in coming up with this list?
Yes, I would on the issue of this interference that you are talking about, it is part of the practice that we have seen in the past. The appointment of ministers has basically been placed at the domain of governors to suggest those, that is on the basis of parties who have been able to secure powers in various states. When it comes to appointing ministers, the president, that is the prior regimes that have passed, placed the appointment of who to be made ministers at the domain of state governors. And that has been the practice. So it created the tension. But we have seen a new system, a system where the party has allowed the president to basically constitute his team, that is the executive team that would exercise the policies and that is the policies and actions they intend to take in their system of governance. So I think it is a departure from the past, being that having the prerogative now to exercise his choice of who to be ministers is a new practice, and that has been the reason that kept people in suspense and the high expectation. So I think we have a change. It's a change that has really worked to put the stress on the citizenry.
All right, thank you, Chair, for that. Thank you, Bauchi, for that. Now, still looking at the content in itself, it was such a grade A document. ab initio, people would have thought it would have been guarded with all secrecy. For that document to have leaked, at least let's speculatively say that what we saw leaked was what will be at the National
We can be
Assembly.
sure that it has leaked.
Well, from what we brandished on the social media and on the front pages of the print media, let's even assume that that was the possible case. What do you make of governance with that, especially with people in charge of such roles in protecting government documents?
Okay, if we accept that as a position, I'm not considering that. I think the president has to also look in his office, some reshuffling. Such a document should not leak, no matter who typed it, no matter who printed it, no matter who enveloped it. And I think that was the reason the chief of staff and the presidential liaison brought it together to the Senate president. At the point it got to them, it was safe. But what happened before it got to them, assuming those lists are the genuine lists, we cannot say that for sure. Then the president has to do something in his office. I don't think such a document should leak. Nothing should leak from the office of the president, because if you are working there, you must have been above board.
And then you should have capacity for, secrecy.
For secrecy, yes. It's not something even you go home and tell your wife.
Okay, now, Chief, what kind of type of persons do you expect to see on that list? I mean, having waited months after the president was inaugurated before this list.
There are many Nigerians that are qualified to be minister. But I want people who have self-contentment. I want people who are not greedy. I want people who love Nigeria and who are ready to work. All along, most ministers are only interested in what they take home, not working. Look at our roads. Look at our hospitals. And that's why President Buhari must get it right this time around. When you have a minister that is greedy, that is never satisfied with money, is ready to acquire and acquire and acquire even what he or she doesn't need.
Then, Chief, should the attention not be on building the institutions to be able to check these individuals?
They go together. They go together. You can't build an institution will be built by human beings. You strengthen the institutions. When you strengthen the institutions, you put a minister. He cannot steal. But the situation whereby a new minister comes, I also don't like the preference that is given to permanent secretaries and directors. No minister in the Federal Republic will steal one kobo without them. So President Buhari made a mistake on that score.
So what must change within the system?
The entire gamut of the ministries.
Specifically?
Now, he has to do something in the ministries. They are still there. The money that was filtered away from our resources was done with their consent and with their collaboration. You cannot, the minister cannot just land and start drawing money and start carrying money. The permanent secretaries, the directors. I don't want to over-exaggerate, but I must tell you that 70% of the structures in Abuja are owned by them. Let President Buhari go and do some statistics. And it is easy to know. I have said it before. Go to Nyanya, go to Bega, carry the bricklayers, carry the carpenters, carry all those messing men. Put them in a vehicle, they'll be pointing the houses. Nwanyanwu owns this, Nwanyanwu owns, because they're the ones that built those houses. It is very easy.
All right, let's go to Barr.
Very easy.
Victor, coming to you now. I mean, you heard Chief here. That's why I will speak about, collaborations and togetherness of everybody involved in this conduit pipe, a syndicate. Now, like they will say, you cannot take a weed out without weeding it out from the roots. Do you agree with him that in as much as you're looking at the ministers, we're also going to have to look at the entirety of the permanent secretaries?
I agree absolutely with what he has said, because the issue of corruption is not just limited to the office of the ministers. Before the minister can even have recourse, that is, have access to these funds that are meant for developmental projects, he will really have to get it through the civil servants, that is top-level civil servants like the permanent secretary and the rest. They are the people who supervise and even make the actual budgetary estimation for what is required for every project that comes along with the policy guideline of the government. So it is not it is not just limited to the office of the minister. The minister only comes along to see if there is that hole. So if the hole does not exist, how does he get through? He cannot. It is like a slope. When he comes and see that the slope exists, he will definitely ride. But if that slope is uphill task, he cannot even start it. So it is a bandwagon syndrome. If you look at the wagon, you look at the tail.
The permanent secretaries, I mean, you must see that the president seemed to have found a haven in them. I mean, for a long time, for months now, the government has run without ministers, and these permanent secretaries will still be there when these ministers come. And we have the general knowledge that usually it is the permanent secretaries that put the ministers through, the first few months in office. Do you think that perhaps there could be more to this than Mr. I in actually trying to eradicate corruption, looking at the permanent ministers themselves? And do you think he has the capacity to do that?
You could see that at the time. Let me refer you back to the time the president took office. He made sure that in allowing the permanent secretaries run the ministries, he placed a limit as to their expense and the limit to which they can spend without clearance from his office, and that he would personally oversee the expenditure on monthly basis of what various permanent secretaries spend with respect to the funds that comes into their office. He also ensured that ministries that generate revenue or income do not just retain this money in their custody, but what he created a central. It is not just a step he took to leave it in their own hands, but ensure that he placed certain structures that will checkmate them. He did not leave them as